Hi everybody, Adam Stern, CEO of Strata SFR here for our March monthly update. I decided not to wait to the very last day of the month to do this, as give myself a weekend to make sure that whatever I say on this video, I'm not going to make any smart remarks or stupid comments and have to change it. But I feel pretty responsible right now. I'm giving myself a little bit of leeway. I want to talk about a couple things. One thing I've been thinking about the business side of Strata for the last month and a half. I'll talk about that. I also want to talk about what we're seeing in the market and what we've been doing in terms of just business in the SFR, build for rent and land and lot space. So kind of the first thing is, thinking a lot about Strata's as a business and, me in relation to it, what I want my life and my family's life to be like in relation to what I'm doing for a living here at Strata over the next, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And I usually do this every once in a while, and it usually happens for one of two reasons, two ends of the spectrum. One end is things are going crappy and I realize something needs to change. So I start looking at the business and figuring out what to change. Or the other side of the spectrum, which is things are fine, not great, but fine, and I'm not under pressure to do anything, and I've become complacent, and I don't feel like I'm learning anything new or taking risks or chances, and I realize that something has to change. And to my mind, both of those things are just as dangerous. It just so happens for pretty much for the entire time I ran Strata, except for maybe like a 12-month span when interest rates changed, things have been relatively good, and I've tried not to get complacent with what we're doing and how we do it, but that tends to happen the more comfortable you get. During like that 12-month time span on either side of when interest rates changed, that was a dicey time, and that was a lot of questions about whether or not we're doing the right things and whether we have to change everything about what we're doing in terms of where we're getting our business from and who we're selling it to and what our value proposition was. But recently it's been more about, I feel like I've become complacent and I don't think we're growing as much as I'd like to see this business grow. And it's time to, I think, change our focus and change some of the things that we've been doing. And toward that end, I'll kind of try to explain why I feel like a change is necessary and what that change might be. Since the very beginning of my time in the SFR industry, I started back in like 2010, where most of my business and the people that I knew that knew me, most of the inventory we were getting and most of the buyers that we came to know were all from this very small group of people that attended the IMN SFR conference, from the very beginning. And it was super easy in terms of getting to know people and getting them to know us because it was like one conference that everyone was at. And we found inventory there and we found buyers there. And we were able to play a role, or at least I was able to play a role as someone that knew people and put deals together, through the brokerage model. We weren't an investor or an operator. We weren't a seller. We were a broker, and our job is to get to know where the inventory was, where the buyers were, and put those things together. It seems like lately, IMN's still a great organization. We're still a part of it. We still go to the conferences, still have our parties. But, everyone that's there's certainly enough capital there that's looking to buy assets and execute on strategies. But I feel like the inventory aspect of it is not, it's not a one-shop stop anymore. For us, we have to start thinking about where to get our inventory other than people we meet and that know us through IMN. And there's a reason for that. It used to be we go to the conference, we get to know all the people there, and we market to them, and we saw portfolios that were generally from smaller operators looking to sell to big operators. Any portfolio owner of any size either finds their way to that conference or found their way to that conference or knew people that went there, and they ended up finding us. And that's how we got a lot of our business. It was through referrals and reputation and the brand that we built in the conference. And a lot of our business just stemmed from that. We started small and just grew. Right now, I think for what buyers are looking for, um, we have to go outside and get to meet new people. And the question is, how do you do that? Um, from an inventory standpoint, there's still inventory that's there that kind of finds its way to the industry on both the SFR portfolio front and also the build for rent front. Builders building homes to sell them to investors, either scatter site or new construction communities, and also stabilized properties being sold by operators. But they're they're not as easy to get our hands around by just going to the conference. So we started to ask ourselves, like, what can we do and how should we look at our business in order to solve the problem that I think people need solved, which is operators need to buy new assets that are cash flowing, builders need to sell assets that they're building, SFR portfolio owners need to sell properties in bulk to other investors, and landowners need to sell land to builders who might build SFR or for sale housing. These are all the questions that we answer and all of the problems that we solve. And we've had our kind of guns pointed at three different directions. SFR portfolios being one, build for rent being another, land and lots being the other. And it seems like, especially in the build for rent segment, in order for operators to get deals done, it's very hard for them to buy a stabilized SFR community at a high enough cap rate to make it make sense for what sellers are looking to sell for. Deals are getting done, don't get me wrong, but to find the right deal that's stabilized is tough, especially in this market. In order to sell at what I think today's cap rates are for stabilized, which for a good project, in a good location, it's probably somewhere around a 5.5% cap rate. And I think sellers are probably looking at a 5 to a 5.25. And if they can't get that, they're not selling. Has to be a compelling reason for people to sell at a 5.5 if it's stabilized, or a 5.75. So, what are the real players doing that are going to be in this for the long term? Where are they looking? And after coming back from the Build for Rent conference, I realized that everyone that's serious about Build for Rent realized that in order to get the returns they're looking for, they have to go upstream in the process. And the more operators we talk to and builders we talk to, what we realize is if we can get our hands on land and lots consistently, and we can underwrite those opportunities correctly and deliver them to our buyer network, it's highly valuable. And if we could do that and only that kind of takes care of the build for rent problem. Because if we sell lots to builders and operators, naturally those builders and operators are going to build for rent, and we'll be in the conversation about getting those deals and selling them when the time comes. A lot of builders own SFR portfolios. So if we did land and lots really well, naturally we'll get that business. And a lot of those builders know people that own SFR portfolios. So I feel like both of those business segments can stem and emerge from a well-run land and lot brokerage business servicing SFR, single-family residential builders that are doing for sale, and also build for rent firms that are doing rental housing. So I started to ask myself, all right, cool. If we're gonna stop shooting in all these different directions and focus on this one, because we want to do it well and create processes and marketing and branding and operations that execute on it well, where do we do it and how do we do that? And I don't think we can do that by depending on the IMN crowd to deliver it for us. What I think we need to do is start somewhere that we know well. And it just so happens that I live in one of the top build for rent markets in the country. It's Charlotte, North Carolina. And in general, North Carolina is one of the most sought after move to states in the country because it's great. A lot of industry here, a lot of businesses moving here. Generally, all the reasons why I moved here, people like it. So what I decided to do is square a focus on land and lots, specifically in Charlotte and more broadly in North Carolina, and work on our branding and messaging so we have a message that's clear and that can be easily understood and it attracts people. And not to diffuse that message by, putting it out there to too large of a geographic audience. When you really think about it, if we were going to end up doing focusing on land and lots in Charlotte so we can deliver them to home builders and build for rent firms, and doing that, still focus on SFR portfolios when we get them and other build for rent projects when we get them. But if the core thing we focused on was land and lots and we did it in Charlotte, what does that look like? Well, I looked it up, and there's if you look at land positions that are anywhere between, call it 20 acres to 100 acres, where you can build anywhere between 50 units and 150 to 200 units, there's really only 6,000 people that own those assets. So it's a super small group of people. And the question is, how do you create marketing and how do you position your brand to provide a solution to those people? So that's what we've been working on over the last, month. And, for all the people that watch this monthly video, I appreciate it. I wanted to kind of talk about this because you'll be seeing some cool branding shifts from us in terms of our messaging and what we do. Doesn't mean we're not doing build for rent, doesn't mean we're not doing SFR portfolios. It just means we're focusing squarely on getting to know the 6,000-ish people that own land and lots, including landowners and developers, so that we can attract those people. Because I think we have a value proposition that trumps most, which is, if a developer or an owner is looking to sell their land or lots to one buyer, that buyer's trying to get the best price. We're a brokerage essentially, and we know lots of buyers with lots of strategies, and we want to put those buyers in competition to a certain extent with each other to get our sellers the best price. So they should never sell a project to one builder or one developer or one investor, because without knowing what the market will bear in terms of a competitive price, they don't know if they're leaving any money on the table. So that's a value proposition. We know more buyers than anyone else, which I think is true here in North Carolina generally, certainly in the SFR and build for rent space. But in North Carolina, we know more builders and SFR owner or SFR operators looking to buy that than anyone else. So come to us, talk to us about your land and lots, because we've got that. And I think, the branding strategy is going to be that. And the messaging has to be, how you can maximize your value. Land can be a lot of things. And, to figure out how to maximize the value over the course of ownership means not only knowing more buyers than everyone else, it also means understanding how to develop that land into something that becomes more valuable to the buyers that mean to purchase it. So that's what we're doing. And it's exciting. It's fun. It's part of my favorite part of the business is thinking about branding and marketing and all that. The nuts and bolts of actually selling it is what I'm really good at, and what the Strata team's really good at, which is what makes the dollars roll in. So anyway, that's that. In terms of business, a couple things. Seeing a lot of portfolios out there, and there's a lot of portfolios being marketed by other brokers, owners. We get approached a lot about our owners who are either current clients or would-be clients asking us to sell their portfolios. We're certainly, buyers are still certainly out there to buy portfolios in the top markets around the country, the 35-ish markets that we cover that have populations above 750,000 or a million people, that all these investors basically sold their investors on buying into. And it's just about underwriting those deals to the right numbers, pricing it well, packaging it well, knowing what buyers to put it in front of, and then executing on it. But a lot of owners are coming to us with these portfolios that are in these secondary markets that are nowhere near a top population center, and we just can't help them, which kills me, because if people find us, I hate telling them no. I want to help people come to the end of their investment journey, but when we say no to those, it's because we don't have a buyer network coalesced in that market, in that small market. And the idea of getting a large investor to go to a small market, it's a hard charge, because unless it has really solid fundamentals and there's a really good story and you have a big portfolio to buy there, very hard to get buyers to go places they're not. And in small markets, it's very hard to find big buyers. So what I always tell those people is think local, start talking to people that would know the biggest buyers in those markets, usually property managers or brokers that understand local investors, and find the biggest owners of properties in that market and talk to them. Package your portfolio and price it well, and create a lot of value for the next buyer to take over your portfolio. In terms of how you price it and how much equity you're leaving in the deal for the next buyer, maybe even offering seller financing. Very doable. Strata's not positioned to do it right now in small markets. We focus on big markets where most of our buyers are buying already. So like lots of portfolios out there in both big and small markets. We're choosing our portfolios wisely, I think. We've gotten 2 under contract in the last month. They were both in Atlanta. And mainly Eastern Seaboard is really where we're the strongest. Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, big markets like that, we also do a lot of business in and have a lot of buyers in. So that's on the portfolio front. Lots of buyers out there looking, but unless the portfolio fits, it's hard to get those transacted. In terms of build for rent, we haven't done any this year. We looked at a bunch. We're actually marketing one right now in Houston, but I feel like for build for rent, most sellers want too low of a cap rate, and it's a little bit apart from what buyers are looking for. I think cap rates for stabilized properties, built for rent, are about 5.5 right now. Most sellers are wanting like a 5 to a 5.25. And like when a builder comes to us to sell new construction homes that are vacant, I feel like, where the investors need to be in terms of how they underwrite rents and how they underwrite returns, there's about a 15% spread to a 20% spread between what the buyers are willing to pay and what the sellers are willing to sell for. So looking at a lot of those deals, haven't taken one yet, except for the one we're marketing right now in Houston on the build for rent front. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to focus regionally here in Charlotte and in North Carolina, getting to know every landowner and developer that's developing and selling residential lots, so we can deliver them to our network of investors, build for rent buyers, operators, and also national production builders. And I think we can solve a lot of problems for that audience, and I'm excited to do it. So hopefully all this resonated and some of it was interesting. I appreciate you listening to this because it's kind of like therapy for me. I don't get to say this stuff out loud, at least, except for once a month. So yeah, until next time, thanks for listening.